Hello and welcome to another episode of the Indie Alternative Podcast. It's me, Chris. On this episode, I was delighted to welcome back Will Potter of the band CUD. Will talked about the upcoming 30-year anniversary tour of Rich and Strange, which is about to kick off in October. Also talked a bit about the new single, how the band formed and their musical influences, life on the road, and loads of other stuff in between. It was a really fun chat. And I hope you enjoy it. I'll share links to where you can buy tickets to the shows and also where you can get your hands on their new single. Before we hit the interview, just a reminder that you can follow me on social media, and all those links, as always, will be in the show notes. If you'd like to buy me a virtual coffee to support the podcast financially, you can do, and a link to that is in the show notes as well. And lastly, if you haven't written a review or rated the podcast and you fancy doing that, just pop over to Apple or whatever app you're listening to it on and give it a rating and a review if you can. It really helps. Anyway, that's it for the waffle. Here's Will. Welcome to the podcast, Will Potter. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Does anybody want to know what day it is?
Well, yeah, we might as well, because it's been a funny old day.
Yeah, we're recording this on the day of the big funeral, so it's a bit of an odd thing.
Yeah, it's been a funny day, but we thought we'd press on because I think it's what she would have wanted.
Exactly, yes.
I think she was a fan of CUD.
I can't say. I don't know her taste, but she's always been welcome to a guest list space.
You've been busy, or you're about to be even busier, because you've got a tour coming up, and quite a special occasion for CUD. It's sort of come round to 30 years of Rich and Strange, which
we don't like to be reminded how old we are, but we are in that bracket where we're heritage indie, so we need an excuse to go on the road every year. So when it comes round to that period, usually half term, we say, what came out 25 years ago? What were we doing 30 years ago? And 30 years ago we were at our height. So we thought we'll celebrate that with some songs from Aquarius and Rich and Strange, of course. So yeah.
And those conversations come about via sort of a group WhatsApp or something. I mean, do you just say, it's about that time again? It's
astonishing how long ago it was that we got back together.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not sure. 2009, maybe. I don't know. And it was meant to be a one-off, but we had such a great time. And enough people showed up to see us. So we thought, hey, let's do it again next year.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done pretty much every theme now. We've done every album we recorded in full. We have done a tour where we played every single single, and then we did something. We just said, "Oh, sod it, let's just do the best ones." which normally what we do then is we just throw it out to the fans and say, "What do you want us to play?" And they just come back with the same list that we were planning to do anyway.
This is why sort of social media as well, isn't it? So getting this sort of Facebook following involved is quite instant as well, isn't it? This whole new way of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, now it feels really old to talk about when we got back together again, being the period of MySpace.
Yeah.
It was weird because we broke up in about 95, went off and did day jobs or whatever. And then we got back together again in the 2010s, I think, or actually earlier. This without Mike playing. And we had to reconnect with our fan base and say, hey, we've come back. And we had to get what was a MySpace page then and reach out to people. And there was very little in terms of music press, and music press weren't really interested in bands from our era. They wanted new bands. So it was very difficult to reconnect. But now we have a huge Facebook following, and that we can pester whenever we want and tell them what's up. So now it's good. Yes, we've worked it out.
Yeah, and so in terms of rehearsals, then, how far along are you in that respect, or do you need to rehearse? Is it sort of like muscle memory now?
There's a lot of that, but when we decided to play songs from Aquarius. There are lots of songs that we don't play regularly, and there's one song we're planning to play, which we have never played live, as far as I know, as far as I can remember. Rehearsals are a bit more difficult in that I'm based south of London and the rest of the band are in Leeds. So they have been rehearsing without me for a while. I've provided a set list, which we've pretty much agreed on, and I will rehearse the songs on my own at home and meet up in a couple of weeks' time, and just hope that, I got them right. And we'll just hammer through the set as many times as we can fit in over a weekend. And and that's it. The first gig in less than 4 weeks' time now.
I imagine you're not taking a massive sort of rack of basses with you, though. I mean, you have to sort of key changes and whatnot.
No, there's none of that. None of that.
The old faithful.
I'm actually talking of WhatsApp. I've just been on WhatsApp with the band now. We are doing that last minute tour shopping. I need a new bass cab and, adapters, and making sure we've got enough gaffer tape, plectrums, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
We'd get there and say, oh shit, we need a battery. We haven't got a battery.
And you get the rider sorted. That's the main thing, get that rider now.
Yeah, the rider. We've got a good tour manager in Phil, so he knows exactly what we want. It's not like the old days where, say, hey, come up with something ridiculous to stick on the rider to test the student unions. We're a bit more sensible like that.
Yeah, it's just a decent kettle, I'm assuming.
Yeah. In the old days, we did have some things on the rider. The most fun for us, we asked for an item at least a meter long in dimension, and we just waited to see what people turned up with, and we got a telephone. The ones that you used to put in the hallways.
Yeah.
We got a broken, disconnected phone which it was great. We just collected loads of junk.
Yeah, it's amazing what you could have got away with. And I don't suppose anyone's got the patience for that anymore. But it's a young sort of wild band on tour. These are sort of the little things that get you through it, I'm sure.
Yeah, we probably got a reputation of being divas because of stuff. I remember once we thought it was quite sensible. We did ask for 4 pairs of white toweling socks to be put on the rider, thinking, we're on tour. We need clean socks for every gig. But of all the things we ever put on, they were the things that were like scratched off and said, no, we're not doing that.
Well, Metallica used to do that for their. I mean, I remember watching Metallica documentaries back in the very early 90s, and that's one of their main things, tube socks. White sports tube socks was a must because they just want to come off stage, freshen up, and put some lovely white tube socks on. So it's good for them. It's good for you, surely.
Well, you'd think so, yeah. And the health of the band all crammed onto a tour coach after the gig. Sweaty and stuff. We want some, fresh feet.
Yeah. How did you guys meet? I know it might be a question you've probably you've been asked many, many times, but I've not asked it before, so I'm going to get away with it. But I was swatting up and thinking, what do I know about CUD other than the songs that I knew from years ago and the current ones as well. But there isn't a great deal about how you guys sort of met physically and how you decided sort of put music together.
Yeah, we all met on Tinder. No, it was Tinder obviously didn't exist then. It was late 80s, and we were students. Me and Carl met on day one when we signed up. We were enrolled for fine art at Leeds Poly, as it was. It's so long that it's actually been through 2 name changes since being Leeds Poly. Leeds Poly Fine Art actually has a history of supplying musicians like Soft Cell and Fad Gadget and Scrittability. So, I think when we joined, we had in mind that we might do music, not just art. And Steve, who became the drummer in CUD, was the boyfriend of a fine artist in the same year. And Mike was doing graphic design in the same year. And the graphic designers and the fine artists kind of all hung out, shared houses. So, we just hung out together, went to gigs, We started to pester bands like The Wedding Present and Age of Chance, went on the road with them, filming them, and started to play around with our own music as well.
And so what sort of music were you listening to then? And leading on from that, kind of, how did you decide on what is quite unique in terms of your sound?
We had very different tastes, really. We weren't, even though we were, checking out bands of that late 80s period. There's obviously bands like the Pastels or the C86 bands still knocking around then. The music we were listening to at home was more things like Captain Beefheart and De La Soul. I enjoyed Public Enemy. I think Carl enjoyed a lot of obscure Sesame Street soundtracks. We like bands like The Fall as well. Mike had more of a kind of more of a trad classic rock taste. I remember he had bands like the Rolling Stones and 9 Below Zero, By-Road on his guitar case for a while.
And kind of like the step, getting that stage presence right, that you guys had the energy, and then Carl's kind of predating a lot of the Britpop kind of, not swagger, but that kind of flamboyantness. Did you work on that, or was that just by accident, that kind of stage presence?
It was by accident. We were very lucky with Carl.
Yeah.
Because he was the bass player originally and I was the drummer. But I wasn't a very good drummer, but I could play bass a bit. And Carl was very good. So we kind of, I think, if I remember rightly, mid-gig, we just said, Carl, just get off the bass, give it to me, you sing. and we stuck with that. And he, we were very lucky, and he had a great voice. But the very first gigs that we did, and there's some video evidence, Carl was quite shy on stage and used to linger at the back of the stage, facing the drummer. But yeah, he came out of his shell, and he's great with the crowd now, and he swings his hips still, and has a great deep voice. So yeah, he's an amazing frontman. We were really lucky in that way.
Getting back on stage, and sort of, obviously you've never, apart from the sort of longish break that you had around 95 to the sort of first reunion sort of things, was it difficult to get back on stage and find those roles that you played, or did you have to kind of get yourself loose, get back into the kind of swing of doing it live again?
No, it was automatic. Like you talk about muscle memory, it was incredible after, I don't know, 10 years, whatever it was, between splitting up and getting back together again, just playing the songs and, oh, wow, I know how this goes. We just went into Purple Love Balloon and it just fell together really well. Carl and Steve had been playing some gigs in the meantime. Carl was doing essentially Carl and his band shows when they played a few CUD songs, but they did a few covers and recorded some other stuff. So Carl was still, ready for that. But no, he felt very natural, and he still does. We don't really get nerves. We just get fed up looking at the clock and just eager to get on.
Yeah, excited sort of feeling to get out there and do it. Yeah,
let's go on, let's do it. So it feels very natural. There's no stress at all.
And those the fan base is still there, but I mean, in the early days when you were first finding your feet live, did you notice when you started to get a following? Was it quite obvious, or was it kind of a gradual thing? And
it came in steps, really. We were very lucky in the very beginning that we got a Peel session before we even left Leeds Poly. We were still students. And The Wedding Present took us under their wing and gave us a deal to make a record and invited us to play a few shows with them. So that the first few months of us being together, we had people interested in seeing us outside Yorkshire. But then it went quite flat for a while, and then you get to about 1990 or 1989, that period of Manchester, and there was a lot of enthusiasm for seeing bands live, especially those that with a bit of more of a funk edge, dancey bands.
Yeah,
and we, even though we weren't from Manchester, we had a bit of that in our sound. Of course, we then adopted a dancer on stage, but we were astonished that then suddenly we were packing out 1,000 capacity venues, and people dancing right to the back. It was a really brilliant time to be in a band, because people wanted to see live bands and have fun.
That whole lion pop thing. I mean, I mean, does it sound ridiculous to you now? Because obviously it's a precursor to the.
Yeah, it's an odd thing now. It was the Stuart McConey thing, wasn't it? In Select, there's that famous issue of Select where it's got Brett Anderson on the cover. They superimposed him on a Union flag, and it's meant to be like the launch of Britpop. But if you read the feature inside, it's this thing called Lion Pop, and it's suede, it's CUD, Denim, Saint Etienne. Not apart from Suede, not a bunch of bands that you would associate with Britpop, but it was an attempt by the music journalists to create a scene that was to fight against the grunge scene of the States, of Nirvana and that. They said we need to bring back, dressing up like fun pop songs.
Yeah,
something British in the vein of the Kinks and the Beatles again. But the name didn't catch, the scene didn't quite catch until, then Blur came out with Parklife, and then Oasis followed Elastica, and then they had a scene. And then they came, what did they cut? They came at the new wave of new wave for a while. And then they came up with Britpop, and that stuck. But by then, CUD were yesterday's news, and we weren't part of that group anymore.
Did you have any conversations about at the time about sort of doing something about that? I mean, I don't know what goes through bands' minds, because obviously it's difficult when you're on the precipice. You're doing really well, and then something is the music industry goes one way, and you were going that way, and it just takes a veering off.
We had two problems at that period. One was with the fact we were in Leeds, and that was always, even though we love Leeds and we felt it's our home, we always felt like that we were ignored because we were from Leeds. So when Manchester took off, no one was interested in Leeds. It was all Manchester bands. And then when Britpop took off, it was all London bands. And our singer did move down to London for a while. He felt that for the sake of the band, he needed seen out and about, bumping into journalists, bumping into other bands, so he might get written about. It didn't quite work out that way, and he ended up breaking his leg and spending a bit of time in hospital. So that didn't quite work out. And we also had a record company that didn't really know what to do with us. So they genuinely had an A&R guy who told us that country and western was the way to go. And they would try to get us to record a more transatlantic album. Our last album was produced by Al Clay, and they got him in. They thought he might be able to give us a kind of more of an American sound, when we'd got a fan base which was enjoying us for what we were, with Rich and Strange and Purple Love Balloon. So he came out with this album, and the first single off it was like this, almost like a metal song, Neurotica, and they followed it up with a ballad, thinking they might be able to get us on Radio 2. So they were trying to sell us to a completely different crowd, and we were trying to change our look and try to appeal to different people, and it just wasn't working out. And Britpop came along, and we didn't look or sound like Britpop anymore, if we ever did. So we were under so much pressure from the record company. We did split up after a while. Soon after, we didn't make another album after that. And now we're back together again. We can do whatever we want and actually sound like we were meant to sound.
I mean, obviously you've selling out most of the dates of the tour. I think, is it all sold out now, or is it?
No, there's still a few more. Yes.
Yeah, but
share the link. There are still some tickets available for some venues.
Clearly, the fan base never sort of dwindles for bands, and I know it's quite corny to call you a legacy band and your legacy tour and all that, because it might seem a bit disingenuous to say that you are not disingenuous, but what's the word I'm looking for? It's a bit condescending, I guess, because you're just still a band. It's not and you've still got a valid audience that's still supporting you, and that's means a lot.
Difficult thing. There is the issue of being legacy or heritage indie or whatever like that, where you'll touring every year or so and just playing, just juggling the songs that you had 10 years ago. And when you've got day jobs, it's very difficult to find the time to write a whole new album and record it. And we do feel we have to justify our existence to an extent. And so I can reveal that we have a new single coming out later this month. And we had one out last year. So we're still writing and still recording, but not at a great pace, really. We don't get enough time to hang out with each other and record. So we tried to justify our existence in that way. But a lot of it is playing to the old crowd and playing the favourites. And they wouldn't let us leave the stage if we didn't play certain songs.
This new single and writing new music together, how does it work then with your away? I mean, obviously it worked. I mean,
it works very much in the way it used to work. In the Mike, our guitarist, is the key songwriter. He's just amazing. And when I talk about the period when we were on a major label and being pushed in to write a certain kind of song, Mike was under so much pressure, and we demoed maybe about 20 songs, most of which were never released. But they also felt a little bit compromised, a little bit different to what we were happy with. So when we got back together again with Mike, he presented some new songs, and they just sounded like classic CUD. And they're the ones we really enjoy playing, and we're very happy to release. So, Mike comes up with the tune, pretty much the whole thing. Carl comes up with some lyrics. We play through it a few times, and if it all hangs together well, we'll go and record it.
And recording-wise, I suppose with the technology now, and sounding really old, but you can send files to each other and just do it remotely as well. I mean, it's not that
we could, but we haven't done that. We still do prefer to book a studio and be there.
Yeah.
Obviously we do send files back and forth, and especially for me, being separated from the rest of the band, I have to spend some time trying to work out how to play the part that Mike sent, or play along with something. And then I will, sometimes it's very difficult where I meet up with the band the day before we go and record the song. So it's very stressful for me to, not having played through the song very much before we actually record the definitive version. Yeah. But that's the way it is.
This freedom that you have to do, like you say, put new music out when it's convenient to you, and it's there if your fans want it or they don't. And I guess that's probably quite a nice, liberating way to look at it all, really.
Well, it's common to the music industry now, isn't it, that most bands don't actually have a record deal. They, there isn't the money going around, and most fans are now reaching directly to fans through social media, so they don't need a record label. So we save some money from the tour. We spend it on recording, put out a record, and sell it directly to fans.
And so, getting hard versions of it as well as the sort of digital versions, is that still something you're keen to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was sent. I'm sure it will actually be shared on social media before this goes out. But today I was sent a video of them packing our single in the pressing plant, and they were playing it in the background. So it's a great little snippet, a teaser for the actual coming out. Yeah, I saw that this evening, as literally about like half an hour ago. I think you shared it to your Facebook page. But yeah, they've done it. Oh, I didn't know it had already gone. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone out thinking, oh, that's new. Yeah, that's great. So I'll after this, I'll share it myself. You've got vinyl, and it's a rare. Having vinyl at all on time and on target, it must be frustrating. Well, yeah, we were aware of this, and so we booked it into the pressing plant a long time ago. It's very difficult for smaller bands like us, where we're just pressing 1,000 or something like that. We're bottom of the list. So if the Beatles are putting out a Revolver box set with 4 vinyl albums on it, they jump to the front of the queue. We have to wait for the spare bits of vinyl cast on the floor. So we have to plan it months in advance.
It's crazy, isn't it? There's such a cottage industry. Why do you think that is? I mean, I don't know. Is it
It's
like,
because it took off. It was most of the vinyl pressing plants closed down, went out of business, and then when suddenly vinyl became popular again, there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough space for it. I think there's a new place opened in Middlesbrough, which I think we may be using. That opened up in the last couple of years, but they don't have the capacity for the amount of vinyl, special editions and remasters, half-speed masters, all these kind of things that are coming out.
yeah.
And,
And then
you go into HMV and you see it's now mostly vinyl, not CDs now.
it's strange, isn't it? But also, there's also the different weights and the different environmentally friendly vinyl, and all the lightweight versions of the albums and stuff that people are keen to get as well. But that's more and more difficult to manufacture, and for bands, I should say, smaller bands doing small releases, just not going to be cost effective.
We did the last one. We decided to do the more sustainable coloured vinyl, which was basically potluck colour. Where it's like the leftover dyes at the end. So of course, some of them came out like a pale blue, but most of them came out like a turd brown. I don't think we're going to bother with that now. We're just going to go for the black.
Keep it simple.
REM are releasing sustainable vinyl. It's not. I don't think it's actual plastic. It's some other material. I don't know. Maybe it'll disintegrate or in a year's time, or you can eat it. I don't know. It's a weird thing now. We do vinyl and we do a download, but we don't do CDs. We may at some point decide to compile all of the releases we put out over the last few years onto CD. We have been promising a new album for a long time, but it was actually because of COVID that we decided to release a single last year and say, we haven't got the album finished. We've got X number of songs, but let's just put out something this year to fill the gap because we're not touring, we're not able to tour, and let's give something to the fans who are stuck at home.
I'm just really disappointed, Will, that Geezer's not supporting you for the tour. You would have thought that would have been a shoo-in.
I don't know. I think they feel that we should be supporting them.
Is that it?
That's the kind of attitude of the singer.
Typical.
Plus, when the full story is told, you'll discover that it's very difficult to get the band back together again because of various fallings out.
Yeah. Well, I received the first part of the documentary, and it was very, very enjoyable.
Thank you.
When are we looking for the next part? Or is that
the next parts are all written?
Yeah. Oh, cool.
It's just a case of getting Philip Bond primed. He's been working on Foo Action at the moment, which is this bringing together of some Jamie Hewlett artwork and story that was incomplete, had been published by The Face years ago.
Okay.
I spoke to him last night, and he's just about finished that and should be focusing on Geezer Part 2 very shortly. And we're all getting together for Thought Bubble, a comic convention in Harrogate in November, which is in the middle of the tour. Tour. So we'll promote Geezer then. We've got the T-shirts. We'll sell some extra copies, and we have some other things planned for Geezer as well, not just the comic. So hopefully we can get those things moving very soon.
It must have been a great, I'll say, sense of achievement to see it physically out there and posting it out after sort of the hard work that you guys put into putting it together, and the finished product is such a nice tactile thing to have.
Oh yeah, I love comics. And in the early days of CUD, there was always a problem with me, where I thought I was going to be a comic person, not a musician. And when CUD weren't doing great, I was going to comic conventions trying to drum up business. When CUD was going well, I didn't have time for comics. And now I can do both at the moment, and I'm very happy to be able to do that. And it's very funny doing a music-based comic as well. Obviously, I can use my experience in CUD to tell Geezer's story. And there's a lot of places that in Giza, a lot that we went to, a lot of, even though we weren't a Britpop band, we did go to the Good Mixer, and we did hang out with Graham Coxon, and we did do some of the same shows and meet some of the same DJs and stuff like that. So it's nice to put that little bit of realism in there.
But will CUD appear in the second part, in one of the parts of the documentary? That's what I want to know.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. There are a few Easter eggs in there. There's a CUD badge. There may be something there. Actually, in terms of CUD and comics, so me and Philip are planning to print the CUD comic. I don't know if you're aware of this. Before Giza, we collaborated on a title called CUD Rich and Strange, which was published in a title called Black Crown Quarterly in the States. It was a strange mix of CUD biography and had me and Carl, much older versions of us, locked away in an old folks home. So it was a kind of cross between One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and the CUD biog. And it was printed in like short sections, but now we're going to reprint the whole comic in one and sell that on the tour and at Thought Bubble. So that'll be nice to have a complete CUD comic as well.
Oh, amazing!
With Philip's wonderful artwork.
Yeah, it is cracking. It just it just fits the genre and everything brilliantly. It's so well written and well drawn. Will, it's been fantastic to speak to you. I should let you go to just carry on a little bit of mourning, just to, but because I need.
Reminded me. We're very lucky in a way, obviously, that the way this, we could quite easily have been on tour at this point and had to cancel, or have to wear all black. And now we've got a few more weeks. I hope we will be allowed to make noise and dress up in some vibrant colours.
Yeah, just don't hold hands on stage or anything, because the right with me to be on you like a shot.
We've never done that. We're not that.
Good luck with everything. Good luck with the single and good luck with the tour. And look forward to hearing the single and part two of the Giza. I keep calling it a documentary because I'm trying to keep it real.
It is real. Martin believes it's real. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Will. Take care.
All right. Take care. Thank you.